Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have Lynn Ziemer. Lynn is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, columnist, master of advanced life concepts, and former corporate executive who teaches her clients how to create the life of their dreams by using the power of their minds. She assists her clients in finding their deep inner happiness, helping them define and achieve goals as they consistently live a more joyful life. Before pursuing her current passion as a master of advanced life concepts, certified life and business coach, Lynn spent more than 25 years as a successful international senior executive with two Fortune 100 companies. She has led organizations ranging in size from 700 to 5,000. Faced with her own personal crossroads in 2008, Lynn took the leap and found her purpose and joy had shifted from the corporate environment to helping others realize their goals and create the life of their dreams. She specializes in emotional intelligence, which teaching people how to integrate feelings and thoughts, engaging in both the head and the heart to create a calm mindset. Her clients achieve sustained performance and well-being in all aspects of life, both professionally and personally. In addition to her private coaching practice, Living a Joyful Life Now, she's a coach and mentor for 3 Plus International. 3 Plus International is a company that specializes in coaching and mentoring for aspiring professional women globally. As a renowned motivational speaker and co-author of The Change, she inspires audiences, sparks discussions, and motivates change. Her second book, The Joyful Negotiator, will be released in 2022, which is basically this year. I'm really excited to have her on this podcast. And Mary, are you there?
I'm here. Hello,
Mary,
Cosmos.
thank you so much for being a guest for this podcast. I'm actually really excited to interview you because there's like so many questions I wanted to ask you.
Now, I'm really excited to be here. I love to talk about my stuff, so it's great.
Yeah, so Mary, I know that you're an entrepreneur, you're an author, you're a speaker, and you're a life coach. Can you tell us and the audience a little bit more about your background and how you got started?
Sure. So how far do you want me to go back?
Like
Do
right
you
from the
care?
beginning. Yeah.
Right from the beginning. Okay, so I grew up in a very small town in Pennsylvania, like 10,000 people. And honestly, I had kind of a fairy tale childhood. Literally the kind of environment where nobody locked their doors and you're out until 9 o'clock and playing with the kids and you're in and out. And I lived in a big family, 6 kids in my family. And so I really had this idyllic background, especially in my formative years. And then we moved, and my father was in the corporate world. And honestly, I learned very much that hard work, moral values, and education were the key really to success. And so I did all of those things very, very well throughout my corporate world, I would say, which is why I had great success. That I tend to be very persistent and I connect well with people. I love people, and I was taught that you work for a company for 25 or 30 years. That's what my parents, the other generation before me, did. And you work well, and when you're done, you'll have a great financial secure place to be. You don't have to worry about money. And so it was this mentality of sort of work really, really hard and everything will be great because you'll have enough money to live on. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of a grind, but so many wonderful things that came from that time in my life in the corporate world. Certainly would never say I was unhappy having been there. I would say more than anything, after 25 years, if I had to say it most simply, is I wasn't having fun anymore. And I was missing freedom. That's the easiest way I can say it. Is the financial golden handcuffs were fabulous from this place of I could have pretty much anything that I really wanted. But I had lost myself. To be really honest, I think I was wearing my corporate costume every day and lost that sense of freedom. And that's what drove me to say, I need to leave and find my joy. That was
Mary,
sort of the first step.
I mean, there's so many people out there that would love to have your life because you work for two Fortune 100 companies. You had
Yeah.
like the ideal life, like you were making pretty good money, and then you're saying that that did not give you
Yeah.
ultimate happiness, and it's just something that Americans want to know. What is it about corporate America that
Mm.
is so unfulfilling? Like a lot of people have their opinions, but what is your take on it?
Yeah. I mean, really, I think when you're in the corporate realm, and especially when you're at a higher level, you're pretty much bound by the laws of the corporate world. And, it's all a legal entity, of course, and everything you do is, let's say, how would I even say this? You're always following rules. I think that's the key. There are many, many rules and a lot of boundaries as to what you can and you can't do. And the higher the level you are, you are paid very handsomely. And so therefore you have a contract with that corporation to do it in the way that is agreed to by the laws of the corporation. But I think what happens is we learn to live in that institution. It's an institution. And while there are lovely people that I worked with, and I had great relationships and many, many great bosses and colleagues that I really, really enjoyed, we were all bound by those same laws. And for me, I guess I would say I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit within me. And at some point, I didn't feel that freedom anymore. I literally felt like when I got up in the morning, I put my corporate costume on, I would go to work, and I certainly followed the laws of the corporation. And to the point and degree sometimes where it was very hard to live with it. In the corporate realm, especially today, and even then at the time I was in that realm, there were corporate mergers and corporate takeovers, and there were layoffs, and you were constantly, you would get close to the people who worked with you, and they were very good, strong, talented individuals in their own regard. And yet, if profits were down or the economy was a difficult one, you had to lay people off, and that is very hard on the heart. That's another thing I would say.
I
You
mean, it's
you
tough as
you're
nails, yeah.
it's you have to be tough as nails, and having some of those conversations with people, it can really eat at you. And I just decided there had to be another place for me where I felt more joy.
You know, Mary, one of the most interesting things I've noticed, because I've had a lot of people that wanted to go from the corporate world and then they started their business. It's almost like even when I'm talking to you right now, it almost sounds like it's like you've seen the movie The Matrix, right? Where Neo
Yes,
is
of
in the
course.
corporate world
Yes,
and then
yes,
he's bound by these rules and then he has to take the red pill. And then the red pill
yes.
here is the entrepreneurial route, right? Like you start your
Right.
business, you try
Yes,
to obtain freedom from all these laws, all these rules.
right.
It's just the parallels are it's so interesting because I
It
do
is.
that the moment like the when somebody comes to you with offering you like like the entrepreneurial path or you got to start a business, you got to take your passion, purpose, and monetize it. Don't be a slave to corporate America. It's almost like a blue pill world versus the red pill world, where like the entrepreneurs are considered the rebels, and then there's like a system that's trying to lure us in back into that world, you know?
Yeah, don't get, and that's very true. There were moments after I left and I said, huh, did I do the right thing? Because there are some major advantages when you're in the corporate world, especially as an executive. You have a lot of people working for you and a lot of people doing things, and you may have an idea and you can call that, next brilliant person in the office next to you that works for you to say, hey, I have this great idea, let's get going. And you have this person to do it and that person to do it and that person to help. And when you're an entrepreneur in the beginning, it's literally me, myself, and I. And so you realize that you have to become very adept at the many facets of an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So Mary, one thing I wanted to ask you was, so
Sure.
there a lot of people want to be like you. They want to leave corporate America and then like become successful in their business, but the time constraints in corporate America is really intense, right? You have to work all these hours, you have all these things you got to do, but simultaneously you got to like work a business simultaneously, and that takes a lot of time and effort. How would you advise somebody that wants to leave corporate America and simultaneously succeed in the business that they're doing? Like, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah. So first, I would like to address something. I think if I had known some things in my corporate world, I would have had more fun at some times. And so I happen to work with a number of people like you're mentioning. And I always say to people, when it comes to your mindset, it's our mindset essentially that's driving our results, that's driving our experiences, that's driving our achievements. And I think what's most important is before anyone jumps ship, before you make that leap, that you understand more about your human potential and your ability literally to create something that is truly aligned with the person that you are, and that it doesn't have to be so hard. But that means in some ways you have to become happier where you are before you make that transition to where you want to go.
I see, but that's like, it's in theory, it sounds really good. Like, but let's say the audience wants to know, like, how do you become happy? Because a lot of people that are working in corporate America, they're looking externally for their happiness. They think that if they work in corporate America, get the house, get the car, get all the things that people told them that they should be having, they'll be happy. But eventually they find out it's not the case. But from your perspective, what would you tell
Mhm.
somebody that's like, if I get this great house, I get this great car, oh, look at all this, my Rolodex and all that stuff. I'm working this big time because it's all about ego status and all of that stuff, you know? And so,
Yeah.
what would be your advice to
Yeah.
people that,
Okay. So this is what I wish I had known at the time. I tell every one of my clients who are in a position like that. And in fact, what we're talking about is really my key clientele. It's really my niche, I would say, are people who are in corporations or people who are even business owners who feel like they'd like to make some sort of shift, but they need the money and the money drives them, right? I would tell them a couple of things. One, happiness is really much more powerful when you look at happiness as an inside situation. It's a place where you need to be. And what that requires is you have to work on yourself first. So I'm always speaking to my clients about science and the science of happiness that says, wait a minute, you have to know who you are. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. You really need to grow within yourself and understand yourself first in order to be happy, because happiness is truly an inside job. They say only about 10% of happiness, meaning how I see the world, how I respond to it versus reacting to it, only 10% of happiness comes from the stuff around me. And honestly, that's what I found at the end of my 25 years. It was like, wow, I from the outside looking in, everybody would say, why are you unhappy? Look at everything that you have. You have all of this and you're unhappy. And I'd say, yeah, but I'm empty. I don't feel fulfilled. I clearly am missing some joy. I think I've lost who I am in the process. So happiness comes from inside, and working on ourselves and becoming introspective and understanding that there's an aspect of ourselves that once we get connected to is really a key success factor in our life at that time and going forward. And that's what I would call our intuition. A lot of people don't realize that we have, when we learn to live from the inside, and so now I'll say from our heart versus always being in our brain, in our ego, when we live from our heart, what happens is everything shifts. the way we think, our imagination expands, we're much more creative, we're much more engaged with people, we sleep better, we're calmer. And all of that shifts the way I think and then the way that I behave. And now I am much more of my authentic self, and I can get very much more connected to, wait a minute, what are my passions? What are my dreams? I mean, here we are today talking about extraordinary America, right? And there's no better place to talk about dreams. Everybody, not everyone, but not everyone in the corporate world, but certainly all of us have dreams that we squish down. We squash it and we settle so often for that thing that we are taught is success, which is money. And it's proven that it really works in the opposite way, that when my brain is in a state of happiness, meaning I have great relationships, I really know who I am, and I truly like myself and how I live and how I think and my values, and I'm aligned with who I am, and I'm healthy, and I'm all about growing every day of my life. Now I'm happy. And guess what? If I'm that person and now I'm an entrepreneur, I'll make a lot more money, 37% more money, if my brain is in a happy state versus the guy or the woman who's just going after the money that doesn't fill me up in the inside. So, in fact, what I like to do with my clients is sort of give them this view of there is science, there's psychology, and then we have this whole other aspect of ourselves. You know, whether I call it intuition or connection to a higher self or a greater power, whatever name you give it, God, universe, etc., source, that when I am my full, whole-bodied self in mind, body, spirit, now I have much more clarity about who I am and what my dreams are, and I can believe in myself. But until I'm going to circle right back around to saying, until I go inside, until I really look at who I am and what I want and begin to believe in the possibility of what science has proven is this much greater human potential than I've ever understood, my chances of really being successful are much less until I go inside. And so that's where I always start with all of my clients is no matter where you are in the corporate world, small business, even as an entrepreneur, if you know yourself well and you learn to figure out this joy and fill yourself up from the inside, you'll make more money. You'll be more successful. You'll be more creative. Everything happens.
Mary, I agree with you 100%. But you see,
Yes.
you are a rebel over here. Like it's like a paradigm shift.
I
All of
know.
corporate America requires you to look externally for happiness in order to maintain the
know.
profits. So if you are over here telling everybody that, and there's like a big exodus all of a sudden, they're gonna be like, man, Mary Lynn is taking our profits away. Oh my God. You're a national treasure. You need to be protected, you know?
Yeah. And wait until my online program comes out where, you know, we haven't talked about this at all, but usually people
Like the
ask me,
female version of Neo, literally.
yeah, literally. We have
Because
so much potential. It's
no,
unbelievable.
like I think that's what's happening. There's like a old America, like there's like the old world and there's the new world. The old world
Yes.
is based on corporations and big corporations and they're
Yes.
maximizing their ROI. But in order to do that, they have to feed their employees a set of like they have to feed like this is the next question I was going to ask you. They have to feed a certain version of the American dream, right? And
Yeah.
this is the and like an American dream that's where there's like a certain image and they're like if you work hard, you're going to get that. But from your perspective, Mary, what do you think should is like the idea, like how should Americans go by living the American dream, or what is the biggest obstacle and how can they overcome it from your
Well,
perspective as a life?
I think you really just sort of touched on the obstacle is sort of this grand illusion that we have that says money is everything. That if I have money, my life is now I've got my dreams. But what happens is even whether it's in corporate worlds or sometimes it's even in other jobs that we've been taught that we should do this kind of job or another job, or my education has pointed me in that direction. And where it provides money, so think about it, in America, we're the wealthiest country in the world, right? And so we get these jobs and we make money, and often we settle, we stay in the job. I mean, that's sort of what happened to me, although I probably was at a higher level of income. And so the money was so big, it was like, wow, this really, all these great things I have going on around me, I can't possibly give it up. But even at lower levels, I think people can become complacent, thinking, oh, wow, the economy is rough or whatever. Wow, I should be happy that I have this job and I have this income and I can feed my family. But at the same time, they're compromising their dreams. And I would say that's the biggest thing that people should be thinking about, is that we have the ability to have our dream and make money. That we don't, that success isn't just about money, and we never have to settle. And that requires that I truly understand my human potential. That's the key. I want everyone to understand that we all have this power inside of us. And whether you look at quantum physics or the new unified modern science that proves we and who we are and our abilities, we literally mimic the greater power out there, called the universe, called existence, called source, called God. We all individually have this ability, but it is in the calmness of our minds. And the only way to get to that calm mindset is by feeling good inside of myself. I have to find joy. I have to live from a place of, I call it love. What I really would say is I am trying to take love back to corporations, or maybe for the first time, allow people to feel better about themselves and have more balance in their life. Because it's not that the corporate jobs are bad, believe me, they're needed, right? We have many advantages and many products and services that come from the corporate world, but there's an outdated way of thinking that I believe needs to shift. That's my point. And that we need to help people be able to feel and be more of themselves. And our leaders have to be much more, okay, I say this, self-loving, understand who they really are and be secure in themselves. Because so often the leaders that we've chosen are unfortunately ego-driven. They're also compensated greatly, and they see themselves as being right, and often not as willing or in a position to really accept others' opinions as much as I think they need to. So much more of a dynamic of a true team environment, as I think our younger generation is requiring of them today. I think that's very much what our corporations are faced with, is shortages of employees, because employees have been tired of the old corporate mode. And now they're saying, I can be an entrepreneur and I can work from home and I can be more flexible and I can appreciate myself more. So I think our corporations are very much in a state of flux. They realize that they have to change. But sometimes corporations are so huge, they're like the elephant in the room. It takes a lot for them to shift and to change in order to create a new environment for people to feel that they can be their most authentic self and be appreciated and have more balance in their life. And that's where I think all the work comes in for corporations.
So Mary, you bring up this interesting point about ego driven, and I feel like that's what America is going through right now, right? Corporate America represents an era of time, like most probably the 1970s and 1980s, the peak of the 1980s, where it was greed driven, like profit based, and it represented one certain America. But in the path that you're offering is offering a different set, like it's like a spiritual America. And like now there's like a conflict and a battle between these two sides. And the Americans, it seems, has to choose between one side and the other, the illusion, as you're calling it, and then the reality that will actually give them happiness. It's almost like a journey that yogis go through in order to find self-realization. I
Yeah.
don't even know like whether you're like a yogi or not, but that's basically how you're talking like right now.
Well, it is, but here's the thing. I think there are some companies out there that are actually embarking on this path today. I really do see it. There are a number of companies that are out there that are really trying to make that shift, and they're finding they're still making money because it's oh boy, this is the yogi thing almost, because those companies have an energy about them. They actually, their employees enjoy working there. These corporations get that there is another way to make money by having a lot of happy employees, engaged employees, people who have lives that are balanced. They want to come to work every day. They're so happy. And here's the key, that whatever it is that they're selling, or whoever their client is, whether it's an internal client or an external client, what corporations, some of them are beginning to understand is this magnetism that we hold as individuals, which is an energy. We each have energy, and the energy vibrates and has frequencies, and it's very much aligned to how we feel. So this is all part of the science of happiness, that when I'm happy, my energy and vibration is very high. And so what that means is I have a personal ripple effect. I naturally, without doing anything, touch other people around me, and they pick up on how it feels to work with me. So perhaps I'm a call center. I'm in a call center and I'm somebody on the phone. When I'm on the phone with someone who's in that position, don't you naturally feel that that other person, based on the words they use, there's just a sense in their tone of voice, in the choice of the way they're explaining things, their calmness, they're happier. And guess what? We buy based on emotion. That's also proven scientifically, that if you're a happy person, a happy salesperson, that this natural energy connection, I am much more likely to buy from you than a competitor who doesn't feel as good. Meaning your happiness that you exude is something that I naturally am attracted to. And I will every time. Think about it. There are industries that are built on emotion. We don't buy a car. Most people don't buy a car because it has four wheels and keeps you dry. They buy it because it's a representation of who they are and how they want to feel. Think about the fashion industry. Why do we buy clothing? Because they make us feel good. So the truth is, as humans, we're buying based on emotion. And so if we could get all of our employees to feel good about, let's say, our institutional structure, our teamwork, the truth of how I relate differently to my bosses versus the old paradigm of what I say goes. You know, instead it's, hey, can we have an exchange of ideas? And I'm a person. And how can I train? This is really what I love to do most, especially with sales organizations, is to train individuals to be happy so that they then not only make more money for themselves, but their clients are 42% more satisfied. Think about that. Who doesn't want customer satisfaction results that are 42% greater?
No, totally. I mean,
Right?
a lot of people think it's like too good to be true, actually.
I know, but there are many people. I'm not the only person out there. There's so much science around it, and companies are actually training their sales teams on how to find your own inner happiness first and what that looks like, so that the people that you deal with are going to feel your happiness. And if they have a choice, they're going to buy from the person who feels better. It's
Wow.
amazing. There are companies literally out there embarking on this I would just call this strategy of bringing love into the corporate environment again.
So
Because
Mary,
go
yeah,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
I was just going to say one thing. In 25 years, I literally have to tell you, things shifted. When I started in the corporate world, there was much more of a balance of wellness and happiness there. I think it happened over, as you said, a period of time where it became more about the bottom line and corporate, the shareholders, and we sort of lost the tripod, the true tripod I call, of customers and employees and share owners. That at one time there really was this sacred kind of contract, and somewhere along the line that changed.
Yeah, they became more ruthless, like according to a lot of people. The
Yeah.
corporations, they were so greedy about money, like they had to outsource a lot of the jobs because I mean more
Yeah.
profits. But there's like a
Yeah,
lot of
I experienced a lot of that. I mean, I totally understand. And, I also could empathize, so I was at the highest levels, short of being the CEO, right? Um, you can empathize because everyone's in the same boat. You have a board of directors that you are bound to. And that board of directors is looking at the share owners. And while they are trying to make good, balanced decisions, ultimately it is about the stock, the price of the stock, and the amount of profit that they're making. It's a very difficult decision-making process often for people.
So, Mary, like, I wanted to ask you this one question as a continuation of what we are just
Sure.
talking about right now, because you're the perfect person to ask this. Most
Okay.
Americans, right? They have a like the American identity is about one of the American identities is about the pursuit of happiness, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing that, well, like the nation is
Yeah.
like founded upon. But it just seems like a lot of people are going about the pursuit of happiness in an incorrect way, or for the past so
Yes.
many years. What, as a life coach, what is your take? How should Americans go about pursuing happiness,
Mm.
according to you?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, you just sort of nailed the most important point. It really begins with us as individuals. No matter where you are, no matter what job you hold, you're going to have a much happier, healthier life if you understand your human potential. And this is what we are not taught. I could speak to so many different things, but when we speak to America being this incredible place to live in a land of dreams, I think there are many things that need to change. Whether it's shifting our educational systems, right? And by that I mean truly understanding contemporary science and what science is proving about our individual abilities, and that we need to understand this inner power, and that we no longer have to look externally for everything. So essentially, we are a soft technology. I'm going to very briefly touch on this, but we are a very highly advanced soft technology that we are not taught. That we have this thing called an intuition and this thing called energy. And as we vibrate and live at higher frequencies and we connect through our heart and our brain, there is so much science in the past 30 years that explains that when I live more from my heart, now we have what we call heart-brain coherence, and my heart is literally sending signals to my brain that releases dopamine. It's releasing oxytocin and serotonin. And every time that's released into every one of my 60 trillion cells in my body, it's improving my health. Think about that. It's improving my health. It is also allowing me to change some of my subconscious belief systems, which come with me as I'm born, and then I'm exposed to, let's say, a number of ways of thinking, again, paradigms, ways of thinking that are actually keeping me from being my most powerful self. Because we are taught that we have to rely on all of this stuff around us, when the truth is we have this ability. And I could speak to miracles. I see clients create medical miracles. I've had my own medical miracle occur. In fact, this is how I got started down this path. Not only was I not having fun, but I came to a personal crossroads in my life. I left the corporate world. I went through a divorce, and I had a medical health condition, life-threatening. And it was only when I was at my lowest point and had a moment of surrender where I really said, I need to trust that there is some other part of me that, if I allow it, will give me the clarity to know what I need to do next in my life that will fill me with more joy, will allow me to find my passion, my expertise, so that I can be the best version of me. So I came to this crossroads in my life, and it was only then that I embarked on this path of understanding my human potential. And that is what I would teach. I teach every single person. You are so much more powerful than you understand or know. And science is proving it today. There are scientists out there that are proving what Einstein spent 20 years, the last 20 years of his life, trying to prove, that we literally mimic the power of the greater universe, the power of that greater source of all that is. And so it's in me, but we are not taught that. We are taught to rely externally on the world, that I need everything else going on around me instead of first going inside of myself. So then I can make the right choices about where do I need to go in my life with all of these external options that are available to me. Does that make sense?
Mary, this is so deep, and I think it's so important that people know this, because you see, like today on a national level, like most Americans are just fighting each other, and then they're blaming one side or the other side.
Yes.
But they're
Yes.
like they're looking externally for like, oh, if I blame this person, I blame that person, then
Yes.
somehow my life is going to get better. But you're talking about something that's vastly different, and it's radical. In
Yes,
fact,
it
I'm
is.
thinking that presidential candidates, if they're applying for the highest office, they need to be speaking like you, actually,
They do. I
because
couldn't
this is
agree with you more.
practical. I mean, I've
It
been
is
for
very practical. It's
it's practical.
incredibly practical.
Like we
And
cannot change the outside world. We can only
right,
change ourselves first. We can
inside.
only, and
That's
then
right.
that ripples out and helps others. Like if we all do
Exactly.
our part, then things will
Exactly.
start to change and it'll start to ripple. And it's
Ex-
beautiful what you're saying, but I think
yeah,
it needs to be given a much, much larger platform.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like you're speaking to me. Yeah.
No, I'm just telling you like it really is. But Mary, from your perspective as a life coach, like
Mhm.
like America has a lot of these issues, like people are like blaming each other for everything. As a life coach, and like what you just told me right now, what would you advise the average American out there on how to basically perceive the world
Okay.
instead of how they're perceiving it right now?
Yes. Okay. So there are a number of things, but the first thing I would say to people is that essentially most individuals, this is how we grow up, is that we're taught that life is happening to us, that we aren't really given the operating manual. In fact, what I teach is I teach people the operating manual to how to live a life where you become the best version of yourself, you make great choices for yourself, and you have success in every aspect of your life faster than you would ever imagine. Right? So it requires that instead of seeing yourself as, oh my gosh, life is happening to me, I really, one day I get up, I feel good, things are going my way. The next day, I'm on this emotional roller coaster. I have no idea what happened. So most people, while we hate to call ourselves victims, that is how we see our lives. We see our lives as I am not in control. I have no agency over my life, that this is all just happening. And if there, most people think that there's a greater power, and that greater power is punishing and rewarding me. And I would tell you that that is, personally, that is not what the way that greater power operates. That greater power, I believe, the source of all that is a purely loving source. But there are these I call them the rules of the game of life that no one taught us. And it is more about that once you let go of this belief that says, I have no agency, I'm just sort of stuck, I'm here, I'm there, I'm doing all these things, and I don't really know what works and doesn't work, that there is this operating manual that explains that you actually have the inner power to create your life in any way that you want to create it. When you understand that the power comes from the inside of yourself. And the truth is, it's what I call this, we're here and we have this magnificent game of life. That is what I believe we are all here doing. We get this magnificent game of life, and everything going on around us in our world is essentially a reflection of what's going on inside of me. Meaning what I think, what I believe, but ultimately the key is how I feel. This greater universe, and quantum physics speaks to it, that the greater universe is made up of electromagnetic energy. What is electromagnetic energy? It's emotion. What does emotion mean? Energy in motion. And that energy, that emotion is always vibrating and has frequencies. And the true nature of the universe is that it's very high frequency and high vibration. And when we get ourselves aligned, we essentially are tapping into the greater universe. And that's where my individual intuition comes into play. So it's my intuition then that begins to guide me when I'm making choices day in and day out with the only three tools that I have: my thoughts, my words, and my actions. That's all I have. When I am making a conscious effort with my thoughts to own my power and not feel that I am not in control of my life, that, you know, I'm going down this place of fear. You were referencing that, right? That right now the world, these are my words, is in a state of fear. And so we're all reacting to the fear instead of reacting to the fear, right? Now I have more fearful thoughts. I go out and I keep speaking about all these fearful circumstances. And now I'm reacting from a place of fear. Guess what I do? I create more of it. Where when I go inside of myself and I get centered, and there are many ways to do that. You know, we call it getting quiet. We talk about meditating. I talk about two-way prayer, meaning go to your heart, allow your heart to lead you, meaning allow all of that, those 40,000 most powerful cells in your heart to direct your thoughts, to tell your brain, to allow your imagination to expand. That is right brain creativity. And guess what you're doing? Maybe I should say it this way. Guess what we're not doing? We're not living from the past anymore. We're not engaged and involved with all the hurt and the pain and the sorrow and the fear of everything that's come before us. But when I feel good now, I see the potential that the present moment holds for me, and my imagination and my intuition are kind of coming together and helping me see the potential of what it is that I have right here in my life at this moment, regardless of what my job is. So I can be in the corporate world, think this way, and have a wonderful effect on my team, on the projects I'm working on the customers I'm interfacing with. It works for everybody. You can still have a fabulous organization full of people who are happy, and guess what? You won't have the revolving door anymore. People won't come in and leave just as quickly because they feel constrained or feel like they're in a prison where they have to work in a grind and no one really sees them and they aren't appreciated. But when you show your employees, right, and everyone, you show them how their individual unique gifts and talents and skills are appreciated because they're happy and you're happy, it's a whole different environment. And your companies make money. And as an individual, you'll make the money you want to make doing the things that you want to do, whether it's in a corporation or on your own as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or a small business person. This works for every single person.
That is amazing, Mary. Yeah, it's a complete radical way. Actually, it's like how they in like the eastern part of the world, like like in Taoism or even like in India, they basically talk about this, but coming from you, because you have like credibility, because you were in the corporate world, and so like people are more likely to now listen to these universal truths if they come from you than if it comes from some guy in the Himalayas or something like that. So it's very important that it's coming from you, actually.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I have such a practical side to me, and I owe that to my corporate training. That's the one beautiful thing, very, very beautiful thing about living in that realm for 25 years is it's all of a very practical nature. And so I learned to be persistent and to execute and to find simple practical tools that allow me to get to this place of, wait, how can I own my power? And actually, how do I execute on it each and every day of my life? That is what I do. That's it in a nutshell, is I
That is
teach people how in a practical way to do
that is
this.
amazing. That is amazing, Mary. So,
Yeah, I
Mary,
love it.
I know you've written this book, The Change, and
Yes,
you co-authored it, and
yes,
you're also having an upcoming book this year called The
yes.
Joyful Negotiator. Can you
Yeah.
tell me and the audience a little bit more about the two books and the premise and how you got started?
Sure. So the Change book is, I was a co-author, and this was, gosh, it's got to be 5 or 6 years ago. It was really my first attempt at putting in writing what I knew to be the truth. And so if you read The Change, it has a very, very important, it's foundational. So it speaks to this issue of when we all live in fear, how do I get out of the fear? In the moment that I'm living in a place of fear, in a situation that is that I'm frustrated with or I'm angry about, how do I get out of the fear, get myself to a much better feeling place so that I can make that shift and create more of what it is that I really want my next experience to be. So that was sort of my first effort at really putting it all down in writing. This next book, which is called The Joy Negotiator. The Joy Negotiator really is about what we're speaking to. It's a very practical book, and it speaks to some quantum physics, some psychology, some spirituality, but it's essentially about helping people understand what their power really is and how simple it is. It's very simple and profound in terms of understanding where your power comes from. And then each of the chapters after it is the tools and techniques that they need to change every aspect of their life, whatever it is they need to change, transform their life, every aspect of it, faster than they'd ever imagine. So they could have what I call this 360-degree view of success, where it's not just about money, but you first go inside, you train yourself to live from your heart, getting your heart then to lead your brain, applying it to everyday living so that you can be an abundant thinker and get out of your way, getting out of scarcity mindset, letting go of the fear, and really letting go of a lot of the noise that goes on around us in our everyday life that we can't control anyway. And that really gets in our way. We get very distracted by all of that noise. So I teach people how to sort of stay within this zone of happiness, joy, and calm so they can be the best version of themselves. And, I teach them the actual step-by-step process and show them what's required so that they can then make better decisions for themselves, learn how to respond to life differently, and essentially create the life that they want. That's really the key. When I first started this journey, I found this. I'll show it to you here. I brought it intentionally. I don't know if you can read that or not. Can you read that?
Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself.
Yes. And so that's the opposite of being a victim, right? And this truly is all about finding that magical place inside of yourself, getting your mind to a place of calm. And that's where all the magic is, because when we feel good, what happens is all of those hormones in our brain like get released into our body, and they relax our mind, not in a way where I'm necessarily sitting there zoned out. In fact, you're able to live life with great excitement, great health, vibrant, high energy, but yet your mind is calm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's some people would say, oh, well, if I'm calm, that means I'm relaxed and maybe I'm the yogi who's not doing anything. I say it's exactly the opposite. I teach people tools on how to live their greatest life by getting clarity about what they want and executing on that clarity, on their own vision, so that they can individually go out and create whatever that is that they want, that makes their heart sing, so to speak.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend my audience to like take a look at your book and the upcoming book as well.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
something that everybody
Thank
needs in their
you.
life.
In fact, I'm just about ready to, I have an online program where it's a 10-week video and audio program that took me about 9 months to create. And I'm just about ready to beta test it. And I think that'll take me a couple of months, and then I'll have that online. So the best place to get more information about this and how they can tap in at incredibly reasonable prices, because here's my vision that I haven't really spoken to, is that my vision is, it's this vision that I hold for everyone in the world, is that they get up every day and they understand that they are the power that creates this life that they can love. And they're so aware that they hold this power. And some might say they're co-creating with the greater universe. It's all the same to me. But you're creating your life, and you're taking charge, you're empowering yourself, and you're deciding each and every day of your life what you want. And at the end of the day, you're still so joyful because each segment of your day is in the flow, and you're grateful at the end of the day. And literally you could say, you get down on your knees and you are thankful to whatever name you give that greater power of yourself. And then you start the same way the next day, all over again. So every day you're creating your life, and really creating true magic in your life. And my goal literally is to touch millions. And so I'm going to have this amazing offer for people, groups of people, because I definitely come from a corporate background and a business background. I'm going to offer it to businesses where they can bring in sales teams and staff groups and groups of 11 people at a really, really reasonable price, so that they can get their whole team in the same place. And that's where the remarkable results come from, is when you have whole teams of people operating in the same space at the same level, applying it to their personal lives and then their business life. And so that's really kind of my niche as well. So if people go to livingajoyfullifenow.com, as I roll out my new book and this new online program, I'm scheduled to do a TEDx talk at the end of April. So I'll have a lot of information that I'll be sharing with people, and definitely, promoting for people to really get an understanding of how simple it is.
So, Mary, that's awesome. Like, where can our audience go to connect with you, other than your
Website.
website is
This, yes. So you can either go to my website and contact me through there, or I have two email addresses you could send it to. One is Mary Lynn at livingajoyfullifenow.com, or M as in Mary, L as in Lynn, and my last name, Ziemer, Z as in zebra, IEMER, at me.com. I'm happy to have anyone reach out to me.
That is awesome, Mary. I'm really glad that you took the time to come to this show. You're an extraordinary American, and I would hope that at some later time you come back as a guest.
I would love it. I would love to do that, Cosmos, because I think we're really at the beginning here. And, I think this is a place where America is right now. We are definitely in a transition. And I so believe that as entrepreneurs, so much of our entrepreneurial spirit is kind of what's required to make the shift. And so there's so much more to come. And thank you for that offer. I would love to come back and share more as I get going here with the next step.
Totally. And I want to conclude this show by telling my fellow extraordinary Americans that there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us. It's our duty to empower and unleash them. Until next time, bye for now. Hey there, everyone. Thank you.